If you're a business owner, then you must be aware of the different methods new age criminal hackers are using to shut your business down for financial gain. So today's topic is social engineering, which they infiltrate different kinds of networks and disrupt it and cause havoc on your systems and your profits. If you're not aware, well, good news is that I'll explain it all in detail. You are watching it all on Buzz Cybersecurity. Social engineering is just like an umbrella term. There's just so many different means and methods that are threats, vulnerabilities, and attacks. So let's start with the basics. So you may have heard of something called the CIA Triad. And it's these three principles of security. That's confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Confidentiality is making sure that only the authorized users have access to information. Integrity is making sure it stays that way no matter if it's a transmission error or malicious means. They will always retain this information within their rights and credentials. And lastly, it's availability. That means only the authorized users have access to this data. This is the CIA Triad, and it is the principles of security. Next term is something called vulnerabilities. Essentially, this means weakness. Weakness meaning software bugs, default configurations where hackers will check on vendors' websites and then gain access to a piece of software in the network and network equipment with things like weak passwords. Now, there's a difference between vulnerabilities and threats. Threats are an event or circumstance that violates the CIA, where any condition that will leave you open to an attack, causing your business harm, stealing your credentials, and so on and so forth. Some examples are malware, phishing scams where people try to gain access to your sensitive information. Now, what is an attack? An attack is a technique that exploits the vulnerability and exposes you. Disable, destroys, or gains some kind of unauthorized access. Make sense? Things like network-based application attacks is a technique that exploits a weakness or vulnerability in a system. So let's step into social engineering. And where does it come into picture? Well, it's essentially an attack against some kind of system. It's criminals tricking authorized users for the purpose of trying to gain access to credentials, sensitive information, and having access to things they shouldn't have access to. The most common one is phishing, which is an email-based scam where somebody sends you a kind of email like, hey, there's an email in your name telling your secretary to pay that $100,000 invoice, where this email looks just like your email address with a slight typo in the name, or maybe there's just like added period in between your first and last name. So it's a very, very popular method. Also, there's something called phishing, which is a form of phishing. The difference is it's typically with a voice over IP. Smishing, spear phishing, whaling, and spam are all different types that I'll get into. So here's an example of phishing. Have you ever got an email from Apple saying you just paid an invoice? And then you go, what? I didn't pay for no invoice. And then you get kind of emotional, and then you click on the link to try to contest it, and then you had to enter your private information like your social security, and voila, they have all your information. Also, there is smishing, where they will text you, your delivery has been ordered. But then you go to click the link and it downloads a type of malware, and then they spy on your business, and then they'll eventually cause a doomsday event where they'll just shut down your business and cause an outage for a ransom, and it's just a situation that you don't want to be involved in. It's a camouflage to get somebody to click on a bad link. So you should always hover over those links and read the address to see if it looks legit. Phishing is voice over IP, where they would call you pretending there's somebody like a relative that's just gotten into a car crash and they're sitting in the emergency room and they need $1,200 just to continue their emergency care. They play on your feelings and inflict a sense of urgency just so they can get a reaction out of you and pay that money, that ransom, or whatever it is. It's a sick and malicious, psychotic way. That's why these guys must be stopped. Don't let them get any stronger. That's why a business owner's awareness is one of the very first methods in your layer of defense. So, if phishing is basically where you can cast out a big net, then you can see who is the weakest link. One that will get trapped, that will fall for it. That's why you need to beefen up your security. Then there's spear phishing, which is a targeted attack as opposed to phishing. John is a business owner, and the criminal hacker has done their research, knowing exactly where he exits off the freeway just to get to work on his commute. He goes into work at 7 a.m., holds this cup of coffee mug, and knows who he interacts with in the office through a specific portal like Microsoft Teams. They will know his entire routine, and they will leverage it. So they're going to send a targeted phishing attack to their employees. If the business owner was a big multi-million-dollar industry, then they'll be called whaling, because as a whale, you are the big boy, you are the big fish, such as, example, Mercedes or huge airlines or T-Mobile, or maybe even just a big business owner like you. I know I'm safe because I got the best security software in place, and all my clients working with me have never ever been hacked. Just imagine them getting access to John's email or even your email as a CEO and finding your email list and then sending out to all your employees to wire and pay this fake invoice. That is basically a green light from you to make them rich. An unauthorized individual is playing on your profits. So by the way, that money is not protected from the banks. Once it's done, it's done. They'll do an investigation, and then they're so sophisticated that they'll never ever be found. These hackers are just way too smart, and we can't put them in jail. There's no justice because it's just so hard to track them down. Why does it work? Well, it's the principles of success, right? Phishing scams are successful, so these successful hackers are going to tell their other buddies how to hack. Big snowball effect of hackers just so they can make killer money, not having to sell drugs on the street anymore. It's a new age crime, and it's the third largest economy under America and China. So let's move on to other successful techniques in social engineering. So pharming has been going up in populated areas in the recent past. It's typically a kind of manipulation of the DNS infrastructure, like domain names. So if I go into my website, www.buzzcybersecurity.com, I click it, and it goes over to the World Wide Web, and then the DNS reroutes it to an IP address, and then my browser connects it, and that's all I have to do. I have my old website up on my screen. But if somebody were to infiltrate that and put in a banned response, a DNS request will go to a malicious IP address, and then it'll tell people that they are logging into a website, and they think they're logging to the correct website, but it's actually redirecting them to a malicious link, and they'll be spoofed. They'll put in their information, and then you're compromised. And then they can sell your data on the dark web to your competitors, so then competition will be uneven, and you will eventually fall behind in your business, and then you might end up going out. Sorry. Next is waterhole attacks. So in relation to pharming, the hacker can think, if I can spoof one website, what's the next thing I should spoof? Well, let's look at where all the other employees are going. So they would exploit some type of vulnerability in that website, have you log in, enter in your credentials, and then voila, they have everything. They'll leverage it, they'll put it on the dark web, and then it'll just be a nightmare. Another technique is called Typo Squatting, or say you type in a web address like Zelle, you spell it wrong, and it redirects you to another malicious website where they can nefariously take your money. So for example, there was an illegitimate charge on your bank account from Zelle, and she went on the website to find the Zelle support number, but she spelled the website name wrong, or maybe Zelle got hacked or something, but she was redirected to a fake website that looked just like the original Zelle website. It actually looked legit. And then she dialed a number, and the number is what you would expect, right? A bank operator and picked it up, told her to go to 7-Eleven and wire this amount of money into his MetaMask account. Right when she was about to do it, she was like, this sounds weird. This doesn't sound right. Why would a bank ask for crypto? Well, luckily she was saved. She stopped herself there, but this is a prevalent way of how people will get to you. Another technique is called dumpster diving. It's basically what it sounds like. People diving into your trash can, digging up those post-it notes and old envelopes from the mail, and maybe even your bills. So they would put that private information into their software, their own database, and then they'll hack your network. That's why it's important to use cross-shares and also properly dispose of private information. We can help with that, by the way. Another way is shoulder surfing, which is exactly what it sounds like. Somebody looking over your shoulder to monitor exactly what you're typing, what applications you're using. There's also tailgating or piggyback attacks, where you have one authorized person that authenticates two people and makes their way through to your data. So this just about wraps it up for the different types of social engineering attacks and vulnerabilities that you now should be aware of. I'm going to give you a lot more solution to these social engineering attacks if you follow me and sign up to my free newsletter. So, if you want to help protect your business, click in the link in the description so we can fight force with force here on Buzz Cybersecurity.